Welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the ancient art of wire. This is DDLynn, aka or Dee, or my formal name, Deanna. So I thought I'd show you today how to weave a drilled through bead. And my bead is about 40 millimeters in circumference, and it's pretty thick. So what I did, if you notice down here, is I cut myself a piece of tape. And let me see if I blow this up, you can see it a little bit better. You see these little dots right here and here? I started my tape right above the hole, and then I wrapped it around, and then I poked a little hole in the tape. And the purpose of me doing that is so I know how much approximately, this is just a gauge, weaving I need to do for the base of the stone. It'll make sense here in a minute when we start getting into this. And then the additional distance from here to here is 3/4 of an inch. So it's approximately 1.5 inches in circumference. So what I did after I did my measurement is that I cut myself 2 pieces of 18 gauge wire, 9 inches long, and 1 piece of 20. Just wanted to have, when I do my little decorations, a different gauge of wire, just for fun. You don't have to. You want to make sure that before you cut your wire, that your bead hole can accommodate your wire. So you want to make sure that's going to slide right through there. So I'll give you an example of something similar, but we're not going to be doing that exact design. So this is a similar size gemstone, or it's actually jasper, also known as bloodstone. And the back, or this could be the front, depends on your taste. Once I wrapped, if you can imagine this folded down around the stone, then I decided let's have some fun. And I folded the wire back to create a different type of bead wrap. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do this one because everything for me is impromptu. I express total artistic freedom because I cannot draw. If you're new to my channel, please hit the bell. Don't forget to subscribe. And a thumbs up takes 1 second, y'all. So I'm really trying to build my page. Your comments and feedback are greatly appreciated. And if you've been following me and commenting, then you know I respond. So I'm going to be using a 28 gauge weaving wire. So what I did here, if we go back to the board here, this is the center between the 3/4 inch mark, okay? And then I marked, is that the right wire? That doesn't look right. Looks like it's off. Let me see something here. I marked a bunch of wires and then I changed up. Yeah, that's about right. So I marked past the 3/4 inch mark because I'm gonna need more wire to go around the stone. And don't get all caught up in that. Just make sure that you put a piece of tape where your hole is that will give you a guide of how much you need to weave because every stone is a different size. So I'm going to start weaving down from where the center point is. So let me tell you that. I've got 9 inches of wire. Let's see if we can get this in camera. And I'm going to start my weaving 2.5 inches down to a little over 2.5 inches down from the top. So I'm going to grab my wires, and my 20 gauge is on the bottom. Okay, so my 20 gauge is on the bottom. I'm going to be working off the spool. I'm going to leave myself about a 9-inch tail. So all this wire here, just in case I need it. And you can start from bottom to top, whatever makes you happy. You can do any pattern you want. I'm going to be doing a 7, so it's a 7-2 weave. So I'm going to wrap 7 times around the top wire, and it's going to be 7 full rotations. That's 4. 6 and 7. When I come around the back, Let me just push these together and see where my line is. I'm getting confused with all the dang marks I made. Let me see how far down I am on this board. Okay, I gotta come up. I'm way too far down. Where's my line? There it is. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just, I marked this wire a couple of times, so it's confusing me. Okay, so now the pattern is going to be over the top two wires, 1 and 2, if you're counting from the top down, in between, and let me spread my wires out here. 1 and 2, over 2 and 3, and in between 2 and 3. And then I'm gonna come up the back. It's the same pattern, okay? So I'm gonna come up the back, come in between wires 1 and 2, back over wire 2, coming around the back, over wire 1, complete full rotation, and then I'm gonna come back down and do the same pattern. So I'm doing what I call a complete set of this pattern. So now this is what you should have. I want to make sure I'm near my mark there. So I'm going to do this again, and then I'm going to weave up to this line here where my hole starts. So I'm going to do just a little shy of 3/4 of an inch, okay? Because I don't want this huge, long bail. But you can, it's just personal preference. So now on the bottom, I'm going to do 7 wraps. That's 1, that's 3. Oops, went through the wrong wire. That's 5, 6, and 7. So I'm just going to push them together. So I'm going to do the same thing again. And this time I'm going to come over the back. So I'm coming up underneath and over. And I'm going to start my pattern down again. So I'm going to wrap over wire 1 once. Then I'm going to come all the way around, wrap over 2, in between 2, wrap over 2, and in between 2. Now I'm coming up the back. So I'm coming up in between the top 2 wires, all the way around the middle wire, coming up the back, around the top wire, 1 complete full rotation, and complete that pattern all the way down again, and do 7 wraps. I'm trying to think of something. Did I miss something here? I'm pausing for a minute, gang. I think I messed up on what I wanted to do with this pattern. So what I wanted to do, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to change it up since it's going this way. After I came underneath, I wanted to go back up and make 7 more coils. So I'm just going to do this different. It's all good. You just change up. It's like I don't feel like pulling all the wire out, especially when I'm doing a tutorial. So let's do 7 wraps. So I'll tell you what I was thinking, and I could actually still do it and just skip in between. I'm always going to help you as I learn what I do when I go, oh, I meant to do this, or if I need to make a correction. So what I was really going to do, see how there's wires coming around? I was going to make 7 wraps on top and then start this 2 pattern weave down again. So actually could do that as a 2-2. Where am I at on my wraps? No, I'm coming down pretty quick. So I'm going to continue with that pattern. Make sure I'm high enough on. Got to come up a little higher. There's my mark up here. Or I could reverse it. Let me show you that. So I'm going to come up here. Nah, I'm going to confuse everything and I don't want to do that. Sorry, you guys, I'm so fickle today. All right, so I'm coming around the back. Actually, I did that wrong too. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Let me straighten this wire out. I wanted to start my pattern over the top first. So I brought my wire all the way up underneath and over the top. There's my 2 sets. Before I do 7 rotations, I want to measure this length because I think I'm going to have to change this up here. Because of what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to uncoil this, straighten out my wire after my coils come out because I don't want to run a kinked piece of wire through there. And then I'm going to bring this wire that's on top around to the bottom. I'm going to stay with that pattern. So this is giving you some really good insight if you make, a mistake. And it's not really, I don't even know if it's a mistake. It's just you had an intention in mind and then you didn't do what you intended. Instead of ripping it all out, you just make changes. You modify it. So I'm just going to leave that like that for now. I'm going to measure that. Got about a 1/2 inch. So make sure my wires slid down. So I'm going to slide them back up. Now round wire has a tendency to roll and slide. So you want to watch that. So I'm going to weave now off camera 3/4 of an inch and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of this pattern. And now what you're going to do is your top wire here, let me get all these wires out of the way. I'm standing up so I can see. You're going to bend this wire here, your top wire. You're going to first bend it with your hand so you can get some working room. And then you're going to bend it up. Now you're going to see what I'm talking about. And by the way, this technique of wrapping drilled through beads has been around for millennia. I mean, thousands and thousands of years. So this is the idea, okay? So we're taking our top wire, we're bending it, and then we're going to weave that 3/4 or more of an inch to wrap this around. So these wires are going to come around and meet with this wire, okay? So we've got it going through here. This is going to come around and meet with that one. So I'm going to take my bead out and I'm going to start that pattern again on 2 wires and then they'll meet back up and we'll start weaving all 3 of these together and it'll make sense when you do it. So all I'm going to do is the same pattern down here. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'm coming around the back and I'm doing the same thing, but over 2 wires. Coming underneath, over the top, and there's my 2 repeats. And then my 7 wraps. I got to get this spool. It's kinking up over there, and so it's dragging on me. So the same thing, coming around underneath the back, over the top wire, all the way around, so we have one full rotation. Then weaving around the bottom wire, coming up the back, over the top, all the way around that top wire, over both wires, and in between, and then 7 wraps. So now I'm going to weave up, looks like I'm gonna need, a good over ½ an inch. So I'm gonna weave up to that mark, then we'll start shaping our wire, and then I'll determine whether or not I need to weave any more in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I weaved up to my mark, but I can already tell the way that I'm looking at this that I'm probably going to need more weaving, but that's okay. This is how we start to calculate. So what you want to do is you want to measure your stone, right? Because I need to bend this wire in the shape of the bottom of the stone in that roundness. So it's 20 millimeters in width. So I'm going to use a ring dowel, right? So I'm going to bend my wire right here. I'm going to start bending it, and maybe I have too much. I don't know. I'm going to find out. This is not an easy thing to calculate, I'll tell you that. So I want to bend my wires up like this. So see how that's going. Let me shrink this down. You see how this is going around? Here's where we bent our wire up, where we're going to slide our stone on. And then I'm going to see how this is lining up. Oh, wow, that's pretty spot on. I guess my calculations were better than I thought. It doesn't always work out that way, everybody. You know, it's just part of the magic of this ancient art of wire. So I think that's going to work out really great. And I didn't do any more coils down here when I stopped. Okay, I didn't do the 7. Right down here. Because I wasn't sure if I was going to need more. So this was pretty accurate measurement using the tape. I've eyed this and completely mess up. And for some reason, my wires are never the same length on top. That's why I give myself excess length. So I'm just going to kind of slide those down. And then I'm going to slip my bead on and see how we're lining up. So what I need to do now is I need to square this wire up in the same direction as these wires, right? So you have to have your bead in to do that. And you want to make sure that it's good and snug in there. And then you're going to come in with your bead wrapped down around the bottom, okay? So you got that wrapping down the bottom with needle nose pliers, and you're going to bend straight up. So you're bringing your wires together like this. And I've seen a lot of people do this. Like I said, I can't give credit to anyone that's been around thousands of years. We've all learned from others that went before us. That's where all my credit goes to. But if it's not a freestyle design like this, but I still learn technique from other people, but this is my design. Nobody made it. I just started playing with the wire and adding stones, right? So I'll give you an example. It doesn't really matter. All I'm saying is that, you know, I would give credit if I'm sure there's a couple artists out there that have done this. I saw some girl years ago when I first got in this business 4.5 years ago, do this similar technique. And then I saw another girl do it. So obviously, I know sometimes people get a little pissy. If it is your work, great, but I can guarantee you it's probably been done by many, many people. So we've got this, right? So now we're going to interconnect our wires. So I'm going to coil on the outside here on this wire until I meet up to this one and start my pattern again. So you kind of got to hold firmly. It's a little fiddly. So I've got, let's see, what do I have there? 1. That's 2. You got to hold real firm. 3, 5, 6, 7, and I am kinking. I got way too many tools here. I should show you guys my workstation. I spent a couple hours yesterday completely reorganizing. Also want to give you a little cool tip if you haven't done this already. Certainly not ingenious by no means, but what I do is the most tools I use when it comes to correcting, drawing, filing, shaping, or cutting. So a pen, a pencil, my 180 and 200 grit files, my little dental pick to poke holes in between the wires when I'm bringing in wire, my caliper, this one I use, it's a little wood carving to lift up my wire. I found that I got real tired reaching over on my bench, that I've got a little lazy Susan over there trying to find what I need. So I thought, what are the most common tools I use all the time? Not my pliers. I'm saying fixing, buffing, taking marks out, drawing, etc. These. So I put them in a little jar to my right. Let me see if I can shift my camera so you can see my workstation. Those are all my pliers, but the ones I use the most are going to be in the front. So I have everything from chain nose that I rarely use at all anymore. I started off with that because that's what was recommended, but I rarely use chain nose. I'm not super fond of it anymore. Flat nose, bent nose, this big crazy little flat guy. It's a very cheap tool. It's like a little duckbill, but it's great for making very straight lines. And then my short stub nose, those are flat. My long nose, flat nose pliers, then my cutters, and my round nose all go here, my six step. And then the ones in the back are the ones that I don't use very often. And here's all my bead boxes. I have a very big workstation that I bought at, what's the name of that really cheap hardware store? Can't remember, Harbor Freight. So, and these I got all online. So these have all, I don't know if I can move this any closer. These have all my, from faceted to gemstones up here, because these are flat drawers. So all my gemstones by stones. This is moonstone in here. Just thought I'd share it with you because you can see how I'm trying to stay organized, but honest to God, I can't have any more boxes. It's making me crazy. This is my silver scrap. And then I'll show you what I use to hold all my wire. I don't have a wall to poke into. I'm not poking into my walls like some people do. So this is my Lazy Susan. And this is where I keep all my spools by gauge. So in the middle there, that's 16 round, then 16 square, and then on the bottom 14. Then I've got my 18s, 22s, and I keep all my 21s, squares like that in my drawer. And then I keep my most common weaving wires right next to me on the right. And this is such a cool workbench. Sorry, you guys, we'll get back to the pendant in a minute. That I have all my bottles down there in different sizes. That's a bracelet dowel. I don't use it very often, every once in a while. That's a 10 gauge copper wire that I'm using. I'm gonna be, hey, give me your feedback. I'm thinking about teaching you all how to do a outdoor or indoor sun and or quasi dream catcher. And then I have my extra boxes, my scrap box that I literally went through yesterday, lining up all my links, and then my buffers. And over there, you probably can't see it because it's hanging, but that's my sun catcher. So let me know if you want to see that. So let's get back. This is the first time I picked up my camera like this on its stand. Let's get back to the tutorial. So let me line this up so I'm center. Okay, you guys, sorry, I just thought you'd like to see that. Certainly give me your feedback. I know I was kind of like cutting right into the video, right? Okay, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna line this up, right? Because I got my bead sitting here, and we're gonna change the shape on this right here. And I'm looking at where my wire is coming up, and I think that's gonna work out perfectly. So I'm gonna start, let me make sure I'm in the center here. I'm gonna start that same pattern, and I think I just lucked out today for everything lining up. So it doesn't always work that way. Sorry, my wire's coming over, so I'm gonna come around the back in between all of these, and I'm gonna start that weave pattern again. And wow, did that just line up for me. Lucky me. Especially when you're doing this kind of wrap. You guys, you can do so many things with this kind of wrap. It doesn't just have to be this. It just doesn't have to be the bottom. You could bring in more wire now. I mean, it's amazing. It's just amazing. I'm going to start flattening this a little bit so I have my wires more lined up. You see that? I'm kind of flattening it. So now it's a little fiddly right here. Spread these out a little bit. I'm gonna, same exact pattern, okay? Coming over the top, you gotta watch that, don't do what I just did and cross all your wires over. Gotta get this 20 gauge out here because I've got, and it looks like I might be, let me see what I got going here. I need my pliers. I'm gonna flatten these. Oh, I know what I did. Thank goodness I caught that. I swung my second wire to the top. That's not what I wanna do. So I am gonna come out of that. It happens, it's no biggie. Just come on out, there we go. I crossed them over and didn't catch that. I bet one of you did, because you're seeing this blown up and I'm seeing it in the reel. Okay, now I'm gonna come up around the back and wrap the wire that's coming out the stone, a full rotation. There we go. Much better. I thought something felt really wonky there. So I'm just going over two, in between two, up around the back, in between two on the top, over the middle wire, up around the back, all the way around that top wire. So I just finished my 2 repeats. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move my stone out of the way and I'm gonna fold this wire forward. I want a little bit of a different shape on it. You don't have to, just what I'm doing. I liked it a little flatter there. It looks pretty around the bottom too, you know? Whatever you want. You just go with whatever you visualize. So I'm gonna start flattening these out a little bit, get that guy out of my way, and I'm gonna complete the same amount of repeats. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up this side, just like before. So let me do one more set for you. Just straightening out my wires a little bit. So I'm on the bottom. My 7 wraps here. I'm going to squeeze these together. And then I'm coming around the back. I'm going to wrap around that top wire one complete full rotation and then do the same 2-2. I'm really holding firmly so I don't yank on my frame here. And then we've got our 2 pattern repeat there. So I'm going to complete the rest of this off camera and I will be right back. Okay, so I repeated the same amount of repeats on the opposite side. And now what you're going to do, this has been done, and by the way, you guys, I was reflecting, has been done typically with, this isn't the design, but I'll show you what I mean, with the round bead. Because this is kind of flat, but just domed on each side, with the round bead, it literally hugs the stone. It's kind of hard to do that with this because of the shape. It's kind of flat, not super round. So you could, if you liked that more cupped in down here, you could leave it like that versus flattening a little bit like I did. So you want to make sure that they're even on both sides. I did not do 7 coils because I'm going to bring these wires together. So the first thing that you're going to do, and I'm going to even up this length only because it's bugging me. When I see it, it makes my eyes think something different. Where's my other cutters? I have no idea where they're at. So I'm going to use, I don't want to use my new ones. I don't want to dig into them yet. So I'm just going to quasi-even these up, okay? And I'm still working off the spool. I'm going to probably be cutting this wire because I don't want to confuse you with the 2-wire weave right now, because that's normally what I would do. On this one, I use 2 wires, one on each side to create this weave. But we're going to change this pattern up a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to swing your outside wires out. So let me shrink this down. Okay, so you want to make sure that they're kind of folded in like this. And then you're going to swing this wire out and this wire out. And you're just going to follow suit with all the wires. And we're probably going to be pushing them out even more. We are. And then what you want to do, and it's going to really tighten this around the stone, is you want to start bringing them, keeping them flat. Okay, you want to keep these flat right here. See, I'm flattening them and I'm setting myself up for a bail. So now I'm going to swing these out even more. So I can even bring them in closer together. That's our goal right there, okay? So with the 2-wire weave, I'll just do 1 set of this for those of you that want to do it, or maybe I'll do a couple sets and then I'll change to a 1-wire weave because it can get very confusing for a lot of people. And my goal is not to confuse you. And actually, both these wires aren't going in the same direction, so the only way that I could pull that off is by crossing them over in the back or starting in the middle. So let me show, it's a little bit more advanced. I did a tutorial on a 2-wire bail weave. You might want to check that out. Now, I'm not going to be making a big, huge bail. So I'm probably going to weave 3/4 of an inch. Just brocking them in. Get them as close as I can. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with both wires on the back. So I'm going to cross them over. Oh, I'm going to have to really loosen up that spool wire there. I'm probably going to have to cut off on the spool. So I'm over the back, right? And they're crossing over. And you're going to go over, so we're going to call both these wires your middle wires. or your inside wires, and you want to cross your wires over both of those. So now these wires are coming up from the top, and I'm going to pull on them to bring my wires together. So maybe we'll do this. I'm going to run out of weaving wire on this side, and it's a good opportunity for me to show you how I add wire. So I'm going to start in the middle, and now I'm going to cross this wire back over. So the wire that's coming out, let me start over, on both sides, so they're both coming out, these middle wires on the side of each of these middle wires. Let me get my tool. So you got a wire here, right here, coming in between these two wires and these two wires. We're going to wrap around completely. And the same thing here. We're just starting in the middle where normally I would start from the side. And then I'm going to push those wires down. Now these wires are coming out the back, and we're going to cross them over again. So essentially, I got to move my spool because I'm working on the spool still on the other wire. So essentially, we're using two wires, okay? You want to slide down, make sure those are nice and down, make sure that your wires are nice and parallel, and the distance between them is evenly distributed. So now you got the wire coming out the back, right? So what we're going to do is this wire is coming out the back, out the middle. Here we go. And did I cross them over? I'm not sure I can't tell. Yes, okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring that wire all the way around these three wires, right? And we're going to change our pattern. We're not going to do 7 coils. We're going to do 3. So I've already got 2 down here. See, I've got 2 right there. That's where we started from. So to complete that, this will be my 3rd on each side. I'm probably going to have to cut this off the spool because normally I work with it off the spool. So now they're both coming out the side from the back, right? I'm going to try to be as patient as I can. Please give me your feedback. I'm looking for my needle nose. And until you get this all together, you want to really make sure you keep your wires pushed down. So we're going to do the same pattern over 2, in between 2, over the 2 wires again. So we've got 3 wires here and 3 wires here. Then come back in between them, and then all the way around your 3rd wire again and through the middle, and let that wire just come out the back. Okay? Same thing on this side. And I got to keep moving my spool. It's the same exact thing, but we're using 2 wires, and it really makes the bail look beautiful. So same thing over 2 and between 2. Now I'm coming through the middle again, and I'm bringing this wire straight down the back. Then I'm going to cross those wires over in the back. So let's take a look. Both wires are coming out the back, right? I'm going to cross them over and cross them over. And I'm going to start that pattern again. Now this time I'm going to do 3 full rotations because now I'm starting with a clean slate, so to speak. I'm not coming off or completing a pattern that I'm coming off of. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to do my 3 wraps, 3 full rotations. So you would do the same thing on this side. So now we have our 3 wraps and our wires are coming out the back on both sides, and we're going to repeat that pattern again. And I'm going to open these up in the middle a little bit. I want some more space in there. It's just personal preference. So I've got my two 18 gauge wires on the inside and my 20 gauge on the outside because I'm going to be using that to wrap and make some decorations. So now it's the same thing, but I'm working with two wires. Over two, in between two, over two, in between two, all the way down through the middle, and let that wire come straight out the back. So over two, let's get that little guy out of my way. In between two, over two, in between two, and straight down the back. So now I got both my wires coming out the back, and I'm going to cross them over. So they're literally crossing over. And then if you're on the back side, you've got your wires coming out on the back side. I tend to turn my work around a lot. I just don't like to confuse people. I'm going to do 3 wraps. So I'm on the back, it's the same thing versus working on the front. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3. So there's my 3 wraps, and then I'm just going to turn it around. I'm just taking advantage of where I'm at on the back. So there's our 3 wraps. Let's do this one more time, and then I'm going to weave up. You see where the diamond is right here? Okay. See the little diamond? So it's like a little V. So I'm going to sit this on my board, and where the V point starts, I'm going to weave up 1 inch because I only want a 1/2 inch bail. I've got my handy little jar here so I don't have to reach way over. Only took me forever to figure that out. And I'm going to put this where the V is right there. And this is just a gauge. And I'm going to mark my wire at the 1 inch mark. I'm going to weave up and I'll be right back. So I wanted to pop back in because I told you I'm going to run out of wire. And this is my wire that was my lead wire where I left that, 10-inch leg of wire. And because we're doing a 2-wire weave, I'm going to start running out. So both my wires are coming out the back. And of course, I'm going to cross them over, right? So let me show you how I'm going to bring in wire. So now they're in the opposite direction, and I'm going to wrap this around here once because I'm going to bring in other wire. Then I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to slide my wire down. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about this 2-wire weave, I did not learn this from someone. This isn't about ego. I came up with it playing with wire and did a tutorial on it, I think at least a year ago. And what I found with this is it creates a seamless weave. Granted, all the techniques that I learned from others, so all my credit goes to those. And then what happens is we start thinking outside the box, right? We stop doing what everybody else is doing and start embellishing and playing with the wire to see what we can do with it. So that's what I did one day. It took me a little while. And I've done it different ways too, where I've doubled up in the middle. But what it does is it makes a beautiful, seamless, almost like a zipper or a corset weave. So that's what I looked at when I was thinking about it. It reminds me of a corset with that really tight weaving in the middle, but it makes it very seamless and it's very balanced all the way through versus just a straight linear wire of a weaving pattern. So my wires are coming out the back, right? So I know I need another, 1/2 inch of weaving to make a 1 inch bail. And I may come a little shorter than that, you guys. I'm almost thinking that's going to be too long. So I think what I'm going to do is come down to about 3/4 of an inch or shy of an inch. Just telling you where I'm going with this. You go anywhere you want. Because I keep remembering when you're bending the wire and you want to make this short bail, you end up with all this wire on the back. So it's just personal preference. So let me show you how I'm now going to have to cut off the spool because I no longer have 2 spools of 28 gauge. I like buying 2 spools of weaving wire because then I can work off of 2 spools and control my waste. So I'm gonna cut 2 feet of wire off here. I had to go out of camera, okay? So I'm down here measuring on my desk, and I'm gonna cut 2 feet of wire, and then I'm gonna measure another 2 feet of wire because this is a 2-foot cutting board in width. So I've got myself another approximately 2 feet of wire. Let's put that over there. A lot of stuff in the way. So now I know this wire is coming out in this direction. So I want it to be in the back because right now it's coming out in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because I want it to come over the top. Well, I could do this one of 2 ways. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. I want my wire to come over the top. So I'm going to make, and you can come up here and do it. It just depends. And slide it down. I'm going to make 2 coils and I'm going to slide that down. Because I need that wire coming over the top in the same direction as the opposing wire. So now I've got, and you want to keep those tails on as you can see, or that wire is going to swing. So I've got my 3 wraps coming around. Let's see, is that 3? Having a hard time seeing here, folks. I need to do one more because I want to, wait. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And this is my 4th. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to feed this wire through so that I can snap it between 2 wires. I don't want it on the outside. If that makes any sense, and having to tuck it. I'm going to snap it. So now I've got my 3 wires, my 3 full wraps, got my wire coming out the middle here. This is the wire that I added and the wire that was already attached in the back. And now I'm going to start that pattern again. I hope that made sense. Coming back through the middle. Make my 3 wraps. Watch my spacing. Once I get them securely connected, then I'll show you how I snap my wire. So I'm in the back. I'm going to cross them over. Just pulling them good and snug. And then I'm going to make my 3 wraps. So I got my 3 wraps there. And it's going to make a beautiful seam in the middle because of that space. And then I'm going to snug them down. Now I'm going to snap these wires off. If you're new to wire wrapping, you want to hold your piece very firmly. And it's just a wiggle, jiggle, wiggle, jiggle. And I'm pulling relatively firmly and it snaps that wire clean off without anything sticking out. Now on the back, I'm going to do the same thing. And it's just a wiggle, jiggle, clean off. Nothing sticking out. So again, it's the same pattern. 2 wires, and I'm going to complete up to about there. I'm not going to go all the way up. I can already see this is getting too big for my taste. So for what I want to do. So I'm going to complete that and I'll be right back. So I just wanted to pop in so you can see how pretty that is. At least it is to me. It's like a corset. Doesn't that the woman's waist and the crossing over of this, you know, when you're putting your string or your, like a shoelace almost, you know? So I just think it's so pretty. That's the back. But I just think it's really, really pretty. So they're both crossing over. Now with this gap space in the middle, I'm going to complete rotations on each side, the same pattern. And then cross them over. Push them down. And the same thing. Got way too much wire, but that's okay. I have scrap envelopes. I got a kink? No. And then cross them over. And cinch them down. Isn't that the coolest? I just love that. I don't know. I like the look. I hope you guys do. Just saw a little wire there that bugged me. Okay, so I'm going to finish. Let me measure now. See, that's 3/4 of an inch. From the V, oh, let me come down here. From the V, so here's my V right here on the line. And that's 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to do another set. Let's see. Let's see what happens. How much more that gives me. That should give me about a 1/16, a little over a 1/16 of an inch. You can have a really big bale, but I want to use these wires, the length of this wire, to decorate this. Boy, these wires are long. So let's see. I'm just going to do 2 wraps on each side. All right. I am thinking that's going to be long enough. If not, I'll add wire. So what you want to do to complete your bale is right here where the V is, and you can use a tool or you can use your hand. I'm just going to bend the whole bale towards me. Make sure that everything's slid down. You shouldn't have to slide too much because the wire doesn't slip like if you were doing a figure 8 weave when you're doing a 2-wire wrap. And then I'm going to get, that's probably not going to be wide enough. So I think I'll just use, and I don't want a pencil because that's too wide. And I don't want to use that dowel. How wide is this? That, I don't like using that. Okay, I'm going to use my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this. So I'm bending way down here, using my thumb. And then I'm going to, before I complete my bale, just going to make sure everything's lined up beautifully. I'm going to swing these 2 wires out on each side. Okay? Then I'm going to coil here on each side. I'm changing this as I'm going. I'm just thinking about this impromptu. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 6 or 5? I can't tell. 5. I'm going to do 25 coils. While I have room to do it, right? On each side here. Now, if you're new to weaving or coiling, you want to stay very close to your weave as you're going through the coiling process so you don't jackknife your wire. Actually, I'm going to do more than that, you guys. I'm going to need more than that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure this right now. That's a little over 1/4 inch. I'm going to do over 1/2 inch. Might as well use up this weaving wire that I cut, or at least incorporate it into the design. So let me see how much I got here. So I'm going to go a little bit further. So I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch of coiling on each side of these wires here. Stay really close to your weave so you don't jackknife that wire. And then to tighten everything up, just spin your coils. Just kind of go in here and turn them. Stay very close when you're pushing down. You can also hold the weave. Here's another technique. And pull that wire down. Just grab it and slide it. So what do we got? Oh yeah, I need several more. So that's 3/4 of an inch, and I'll be right back. I'm gonna do the other side. Okay, so I coiled both sides, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pre-shape, kind of round these 2 middle wires out right here so that I can feed them through. We've got plenty of gap space, but I just want to make sure that I do it so that I can just start rolling. So here's what we got. Now I can start pushing on the back of my bale, and I'm really glad I didn't weave anymore. I didn't want a big bale. And I'm just gonna push those wires through. So we've got these wires coming out the side, and I might be adding more coils, I don't know. And then the wires coming out the top. Got this great gap space that you can fit any size chain in. And this is just plan. All I'm doing is plan. So I'm going to bring these, I'm going to do something totally different instead of bring them all the way through. I'm going to bring these over the top. And then I'm going to tuck them in around the back. So I'm just creating more dimension to the bale. You could actually add a gemstone in here, you guys. I'm telling you, you can go anywhere. You could open these up, round them out, get a gemstone. So you want to round the sides out, like get your tool in here and create like a bend, and then put your gemstone there, and then weave these together on top. I'm just going to bring them around the back, and then I'll be tucking them into my bale here when I'm done. So these wires are going to come around this way and they're going to tuck in there. But isn't that cool? It gives it just some dimension, a different dimension, a little more 3D, right? So now we're going to play. So we've got our coiled wire here. I'm going to turn this around because I want to make sure that I'm maintaining symmetry. And by the way, out of that 2 feet of wire, I still have 13 inches on each side. So that was a lot of wire. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend this straight up and the other one straight up. And I wanna make sure that they're perpendicular and in line. So let me make sure that these are kosher. I can do that later. I don't know why I stopped to do that now. So now what I'm gonna do, and I know I'm not gonna need all this weaving wire, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave myself 6 inches on each side because it's really starting to annoy me. All this wire bouncing around all over the place, right? Keeping that there so I know where to stay center. Okay, so these 2 wires are coming around. Now I'm gonna follow with the other wire. This is the other one. So we kind of got something like this. Then I'm gonna start to pre-shape these so that I can roll them in. Okay, so I'm just gonna start with one side, make sure I feed this through. This is my weaving wire. Needs to come in between. I'm fiddling too much. Okay, so I'm gonna feed these through on an angle. So I'm angling them down like this. And I'm just gonna slowly, very slowly, I'm supporting my bale in the back, start pushing them through. I am not going to use my tools yet. Just pushing them around. So now I'm going to grab, where is that coming from? Oh, there it is. I'm not sure I'm going to need this, which is why I'm leaving it on. I'm going to get my pliers. Where did my needle nose go? And I'm going to grab the inside wire or the top wire where the coils are on and very gently start to pull it through. But I'm not tightening anything up yet. And I'm following suit with the other wire. I'm going to turn around and see what we got. This is why I'm not tightening anything up yet. I'm pitching those down a little bit. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these. I don't think I'm going to need this weaving wire, but I'm going to leave it on because I'm thinking about weaving. So I'm going to pitch these down on an angle and just start pushing them through. Let's feed that wire through there so we have it coming out the back. So I'm going to get, these are in my way, so move them out. I'm going to start pulling this one. I'm holding my bale forward, and this one. Not going to cinch anything down yet. Just lining everything up. I want really nice symmetry here. Just a gentle rock on that wire. That actually worked out to be the perfect amount of coils, you guys. And it was just a guess. I love the guesses that work, right? I always giggle because I'm just always amazed. I'm amazed that I do this. I'm just amazed. I'm always in a constant state of gratitude and just so completely enamored by this wonderful art. It's just amazing. It takes thousands and thousands of hours of dedication. So please don't cut yourself short when you really start mastering it. I see a lot of Asians and Indonesians selling some decent work. I wouldn't say it's masterpiece work, like some incredible artists out there, but for pennies, and it's just an insult. It's an insult to the over 5,000 years this predates the Phoenicians of what it takes to get here. I'm sorry, but I feel very strongly about that. And you start giving this away, you know, I can see if you're just starting and you want to sell something for 25 because it's not perfect, but that's just how I feel. So now I want to make something decorative here. I'm going to cut off, I think, where this coil is and tuck my wire in, or should I feed it through? Actually, I think I'm going to bring them both around again. So let's do that. So I'm going to tighten this up against my frame. Be careful not to compromise and pull so tight that you squeeze in your frame weaving wire. You don't want to do that. Especially if you're using 18 gauge like me. That is a heavy duty wire. I would recommend if you're just starting out with this concept, maybe use 20. Okay, here's where I was thinking of weaving again. So let me just pull this weaving wire back. But I think I'm going to pass. I don't think I want to. Yeah, we'll be almost done here. So I'm going to snap this wire off. Wiggle jiggle. This is going to go into my scrap envelope. I have big, huge envelopes that I put all my wire gauges on, and then I put all my scrap in there, and believe you me, I use it. I'm going to come around here. Flatten that out just very gently. Okay, so this wire I'm going to bring through. So this is our wire that has the coils on it, okay? And I'm going to bring that through one more time. And open this up so I can get some working room. And the same thing here. Okay, so these are both coming out the back. I'm going to trim those and tuck those in there. First thing I'm going to do is straighten this out. And I need a big flat nose to do that. This is 18 gauge. Then I'm going to bring this one forward. And I'm going to do something decorative, a little semi-decorative. Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. I think it's very pretty. And we've got our little spinning bead here. Now, if you wanted, you could fold this over the front or you could fold it over the back. I was just playing. That's all I was doing. And I'm really happy with my bail like that. So I am going to take this wire, straighten it out, and I'm going to rock it a little bit to flatten it into the base of the 3-wire weaved frame. And I'm going to hide it as best I can. So I'm in there. So this wire is way back in there, and I'm just going to tuck it in there even more. So you can't see it. Just doing a little hide job there. Okay, so we're going to flatten this out. I don't want any roundness in this wire. I want it to go flush against. So what I'm doing is I'm flattening it out against the frame wires. I don't want any bowing in it down in here. Then I'm going to trim it. I'm going to move it up a little bit so I can tuck it in. See how I tucked it down inside there? This little wire right here is tucked in. I'm going to turn around, see how my symmetry is. And before I do my decorative design, I want to secure my bail. So I have a couple of options. I'm thinking about how much wire I have here. I'm going to bring this wire straight down, and I think I have enough. Then I'm going to, just enough, feed the wire through. So I'm going to go in the opposite direction just to give myself some working room, and I'm going to feed that wire through. And then we're going to secure it. I have just enough, and I'm going to secure it on top because I don't have enough to go around twice. So I'm going to make do with what I have. I'm going to get a plier in here because I saw this wire lifting up. Make sure this is good and flattened down. I am not left-handed, but I need to hold this down so that it doesn't lift up, and I can start really working this wire in the direction that I want it to go. And the same thing over here. Let me see what direction I went in. I went up, I went up. So they're both coming up. One's a little bit longer than the other, so I should be able to cinch that in. Okay. This prevented me from pulling one of these up unevenly by holding the inside of the bail, and the pliers were not resting on the weave, but they were resting on the round 18 gauge wires coming through the middle. Isn't that pretty, you guys? I think that's really pretty. I'd love your feedback. So I'm going to roll this, anchoring off the wire itself, and I'm going to roll it in, and I've got enough wire. So I'm going to cut just a little bit so I can tuck it in to itself so the wire is meeting itself. So you really can't see a rough cut, you know what I mean? And then I want it to go into itself here, and I can see that that's too long. So I'm going to cut it. Let's see. You need to use good flat nose, not needle nose when you're doing this, or you'll slip off your wire. So that's our back. Isn't that pretty? So now in the front, I just want to make sure that these are the same length. This one looks just a smidgen. So I just trimmed those up, and 9 inches of wire was perfect for what I'm doing here today. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make a little curl or swirl. And if you've watched me before, I do not like blunt ends. So I am smashing that tip down and making a really nice point. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I like to do both sides equally. I tend not to complete an entire side. I always do a little bit of each side. It just helps just how I process, you guys. It's just my brain. Some people, you know, I don't know. I'm sure if you haven't heard of Gem Seeker Studios, she's a phenomenal artist, not just a wire artist, but she draws like no tomorrow. I mean, that girl can draw out 3 dimensions and make it. It just blows me away. I can't draw. So it limits me to being able to recreate a lot of things. And I'm going to clean these edges up here. So I don't have anything rough on there. So she will do one complete side. I didn't finish what I was talking about. I'm so sorry. And then go to the other. I won't do that. I can't. I'm too concerned that I won't have symmetry if that's what I'm looking for, right? So some things are very organic and off-center and supposed to be that way, you know? So now I'm going to start a loop. Then I'm going to stop there and go over to the other side because that just works for me. So I want to make sure they're as close together as possible, right? So I'm going to start closing these off just a little bit. So I'm going to come off the top of the tip and roll. I'm not rolling in as much as I'm rolling down and out. Now I could hammer these, but I'm not gonna. So I could pull these wires completely out and hammer them. I'm gonna squeeze in just a little bit. So now this is really easy versus trying to make your swirl really close to your frame or your weaving wire. All you're gonna do is you're gonna swing it in on each side, line them up so that they're level, and then you're going to just simply push them down. I always encourage people to look for technique. It's amazing. If you're struggling with making swirls and curls, then do it up in the air and turn it around and put it where you want it. So now I'm looking at that and I want to close these off even more, but I didn't want to tighten them up too much until I knew how they were going to rest on the piece. So I'm going to get my pliers in here and turn it in more towards the frame. See that? If you don't like them that big, then cut them back. And I may do that later. For me, that might be a little big. Turn them in. And I'm actually leveraging off the piece itself. I was actually turning the piece versus trying to tweak my wrist. Then I'm just going to flatten this in there, which is going to flatten the frame out even more. Now, if you're worried about security and you think these wires are going to lift up, you can easily, remember I showed you that dental pick? You can easily take this pick right here and right here or right here, open up your frame wires and weave a piece of wire through there and just loop it off. So there you go, ladies and gents. I hope that you enjoyed that. This was a long tutorial as usual, except when I do my little bead wraps. And I really appreciate your feedback, everybody. So tell me what you were thinking. I'd love to see what you came up with. But it's a very clean design. And I just came up with this off my head as I was going. As I mentioned, I've seen several people do this theory of how you weave the wire down, you bend the wire over to slide a bead on. So that's why I can't give credit. I don't care how many people are out there teaching it. I can guarantee you it came thousands of years before. They've been bending wire and sliding beads on it forever, right? But Creativity is your own. So what you want to do to take off on it is yours. So I really, really thank you for being a part of this magical, ancient art of wire. I wish for all of you all that you wish for yourselves. Have a magical, wonderful wire wrap day. Bye for now.